Thank you so much for joining me and my guest, the Register of Deeds for Norfolk County, Bill O'Donnell. Bill, welcome back.
Mark, thanks for having me, and again, thanks to Quincy Access Television. We're so lucky in Norfolk County, and this show not only gets sent out to Norfolk County, it goes statewide. Where community television is where it's at, community access media, and again, thanks to Quincy Access Television for doing this.
It is what we do. We get the information out there, we share, and folks get to, I guess, see the way it really is.
Yeah, and whether it's at the local level or at the regional level, there's a place, a big place in the communities for just getting information out there. And I appreciate that here we are talking about the Norfolk County Registry of Deeds. There's 28 communities that make up Norfolk County. We date back to 1793. And people are interested in statistics and some of the issues we talk about, some of the real estate issues that pertain to the biggest asset most of us have, our homes. So I appreciate that I do have some statistics for the quarter. Again, it was January, February, March of 2026, and it was a slow start. It was a slow start in January and February, and I kind of view that March has pulled things out. And the reason why I said it was a slow start is a group, the Warren Group, noted that single home sales were down 10.5% in January and February. Now, some people attribute it, and I always attribute it, January and February are kind of slower times. You're coming off the holidays. We did have some significant storms. We had some significant wind chill days that are below the wind chill. And you might say, what does that have to do with it? Well, it has, people aren't out looking for houses when you're digging out, blizzard conditions. And also, a lot of areas had significant electrical outages. So there were a lot of factors, I think, that go into the fact that January and February aren't always vibrant months. But thankfully, March kind of pulled things out a little bit, because on total documents, again, January, February, March of 2026, there were 23,802 documents, total documents recorded at the Norfolk County Registry of Deeds, versus 22,752 for the same period in 2025. So that's a 5% increase. And the Massachusetts Association of Realtors has taken note that in March, single-family listings were up 1% in 2026 versus 2024, and condo listings were up 17.2%. So again, that just shows you that there's more listings in March, and maybe that bodes well for the spring. And the reason why I bring that up is there are some concerning numbers too. For instance, in this quarter, the 3-month period we're talking about, total deeds recorded were 3,409 in 2025, and in the same period in 2026, 3,252. So there was a decrease in the number of deeds. And what's a deed? A deed is a document that gets recorded when there's a transaction, when there's a sale of a house or a sale of a business. And that's down 5%. So again, that's concerning. Now, one thing we see in Massachusetts and in Norfolk County, that there's still a demand for housing, and even though there's less inventory, the median price of sales has gone up, because there isn't as many houses out there. There's still demand. Maybe you don't have 6 people competing for one house, but there's still some significant demand, which drives the prices up. Another indicator we talk about is mortgages, and again, good news in one sense. Part of our document volume is the number of mortgages that get recorded. And in 2026, that this 3-month period, January, February, March, 4,137 mortgages got recorded, as opposed to 3,279 over the same period in 2025. That's a 26% increase. And some of it's a function of the interest rates. The Federal Home Loan Mortgage Corp, the average 30-year fixed interest rate was 6.6% and 6.9% in 2025, and over this first quarter in 2026, it was 5.98% and 6.38%. So this improved lending condition, when people see rates going down a little, maybe they have college tuitions they have to pay. Maybe they're trying to stay in their house and renovate. So more and more mortgages were recorded. I think the mortgages are needed when you buy a house, but with these numbers, there are people who are taking equity out of their home, and again, people might say, well, why are the deeds down? And I say that some people who have borrowed money some time back, and they might have favorable interest rates of 2.5% or 3%.
With these numbers today, it makes you think back that they were that low.
Yes, and some of it I think is just a function of luck as to when you're buying, because I feel bad for some of the first-time home buyers now, even with these lower interest rates of 5.98%. You're borrowing $700,000 or $500,000 and at almost 6%, when not that long ago it was 2.5%, it was 3%, and how does that tie into why sales might be down or Ds might be down? People are sitting there saying, well, I wouldn't mind upgrading my house, or I have a nice house, but I'd like to, sell it and move up to a bigger house. First of all, they're like, well, why would I do that with this unfavorable interest rate difference? I'm going from 3% to 6%. That's extra money. And then there are other factors. People don't realize that here we are locally. We're talking about local, community access. But sometimes what's going on in the world and in the country has effects. And if people aren't feeling confident about the economy, there's increased gas prices. There's some increased costs. People are a little more cautious about, well, wait a minute, I'm going to jump in and buy my first house. Well, maybe I can't. Maybe I got to be a little more cautious. And I think other people who have housing don't want to sell that house and move up to a bigger house, take on more debt and take on more risk. That's why I think that's another factor, I think, driving the fact that home sales are down. We'll see in April, May, and June. That traditionally has been when people come out to buy, houses. And again, I think that those March statistics from the Massachusetts Association of Realtors showing that listings were up in March. Hopefully they'll get that way in the spring, in April, and in May, and in June. One thing I do want to point out when it comes to these statistics are both foreclosure deeds and notices to foreclose. The notices to foreclose are at the beginning of the process. If your lender is foreclosing on you, they have to file a notice to foreclose. And we always suggest, and again, the good news is the foreclosure deeds were down 39%, and the notices to foreclose were down 4% countywide in 2026 versus 2025. But if you are facing difficulties with paying off your mortgage and getting into some trouble with your lender, go to our website, www.norfolkdeeds.org. We have links and commitments from some great social service agencies. They're nonprofit, Quincy Community Action Programs, and Neighbor Works Housing Solutions. They've committed to help anybody in Norfolk County, not just from Quincy or for the 28 communities. They give assistance. When I say assistance, they give advice. They give legal assistance. They give counseling. Maybe it's you're having problems with credit cards or not being disciplined. Other times it's just what I say, a bad event. Someone could be sick. Someone could have lost a job. But before it gets too far down the process, where the sheriff's department, they are out doing a sale of your property, a foreclosure sale, reach out to these groups. And also on our website, we have links to the Attorney General's office, which also has resources available to anyone that may be having some difficulty paying their mortgage.
As I had mentioned to you about changing interest rates, we are also in the midst of a Fed chair change. So it's interesting to note how much a president, in this case, President Trump, has influence over the Fed chair.
And again, there's always been people trying to use the powers of persuasion to affect the Fed. I mean, I think the Federal Reserve was set up to sort of be independent, to make that economic call where they're supposed to balance, employment with inflation and make decisions, and kind of take the politics out of it. I think over the years there's always politics in everything, but again, hope, from my personal point of view, I still hope, these people are, economists. These people are sharp and trained in how the economy should function, and they probably learned from Federal Reserve mistakes in the past, from the 70s and 80s, and hopefully they come up with a balanced policy that balances. We don't want inflation because it ruins, it cuts into our savings. We don't want inflation because it's harder to make things meet, but at the same time we don't want to be unemployed either. So it's that balancing act, and who knows what comes out of what's going on down in Washington. But decisions that get made, decisions and acts that happen internationally or happen nationally down in Washington, D.C., do have an effect on the local markets.
The Northeast is a favorable place to live.
I think we see that even in the statistics. Not every county across America can claim these statistics where document volumes have gone up. That again, I've come here all these months saying, hey, deed volume has gone up every quarter. We have to take a pause here because the deed volume did go down this quarter. So, but overall, our statistics that we have talked about for years has always, shown improvements here in Norfolk County. And surprisingly, because there's been ups and downs in the economy, and 2024 was better than 2023, 2025 was better than 2024, and again, in some areas, 2026 is starting off better than 2025, but again, not with the deed sales. But listings are up, so we'll stay tuned for the second quarter.
The Community Preservation Act.
The Community Preservation Act has been around a long time. In fact, some of the earlier communities that jumped in were Cohasset and Norfolk. And the Community Preservation Act has to be adopted locally. And in this sort of, it's a tax. It can vary. And the projects that are used are either for housing, open space, or historical preservation. And again, as Registry of Deeds, I haven't acted, I just put information out there. And we started years ago because the legislation that funds these projects comes from the money that gets raised locally by the town with their tax to their citizens. But it also, the state legislature passed, there's a fee that gets collected on every document that's recorded at the Registry of Deeds, and we send it to the Department of Revenue, and they use that as a pool of money to help these local communities leverage whatever money they raise locally. They get matched from the state to do these projects. And we put these letters out to show by the 28 communities in Norfolk County how much money gets raised on the documents from each town.
And they all adopted this?
No, not every community has. Out of the 28, I think there's 22 have adopted in Norfolk County, but it didn't start that way. For a long time, there was only 3, Cohasset, Norfolk, and Medway. And but what happened is, I think a lot of people would get our information, and then the local communities have to make their decision. In Norwood, there wasn't any stomach to have a CPA, vote or a CPA law. It never happened. But, we would send these letters out, and I think people started saying, well, wait a minute, money is getting collected on Norwood documents that are going to this pool that is getting used by towns for these projects. So I know a lot of the communities, Braintree, Quincy, have taken advantage of the CPA monies. So every spring we send out information, and it's going out again, just showing out of the 28 communities what gets collected. We don't take any position whether your community should adopt the CPA or not. As I said, in my hometown of Norwood, they eventually did. And now they've used it for, improving ball fields, some, historical renovations of some, buildings and housing. So again, it's up to the towns. But again, that just shows. We try to make the registry relevant. So the registry has been put in charge of collecting these fees on every land document that gets recorded, and it's part of the CPA. And again, there are a lot of fees we collect, and they go to the Department of Revenue. That's part of, why I appreciate my staff and the professionalism of our staff is we not only record hundreds of thousands of documents. I mean, one year, 330,000 documents. These documents get recorded because they're the title to your home. They're very important to you. The biggest asset you have is your home. Whether it's your home or business, you want to make sure that you're getting good title. And, I take pride that we run a great operation here at the Norfolk Registry of Deeds. I have a great team, a great staff. But the other aspect is we collect revenues, and you have to do that professionally and competently, and to make sure that everything is accounted for. So it's not just recording the documents; it's also collecting fees, most of which go to the state. The state uses that for local aid, other projects or other programs like the Community Preservation Act.
I'm taking a page from your newsletter, which folks can sign up for, and you certainly encourage that. Registrar O'Donnell discusses type of land plan available at the Norfolk County Registry.
Yeah, we try to. We do have a newsletter, and people can go to our website if they want to sign up for it. And we usually talk about maybe why you should have a homestead. The homestead is an act of the state legislature, and if you record a homestead, they change the values. There's up to $1 million worth of protections. So we put these articles out to just be informative. And I think that the takeaway is if you go to our website, and it didn't happen overnight. Again, I had a great team. I said I wanted to bring the registry into people's homes and businesses, and we did it through the internet. And the internet, it started a little while ago, but when I first got to the registry, there was no documents online. We've put every document online. Our library is approaching 15 million images. So you can go onto our website, www.norfolkdeeds.org, and look up a plan of land. Look up a deed to your house. Look up historical deeds. More and more people are doing historical research. We've opened up a genealogy and research center at the registry, and they're looking back at the documents for historical purposes or genealogical purposes. But if you go back, our first document, which was recorded in 1793, is available on our website, and you can look it up. It's available by book. We're still one of the few registries that print books. I take pride in that because I view that as another way of protecting the records. We protect the records in this innovative society that we live in by tape drive backups, make sure it's offloaded to Iron Mountain. There's Iron Mountain in New York, Massachusetts, Rhode Island. But we microfilm, which by law we have to do. That is another way to protect the records. But I also, printing the books, I think. And some people do come in and do it the old-fashioned way and looking up the indexes and the books. But there are plans, and again, most plans at the registry, a lot of times people are looking for, my house is there. The plans at the registry are really when the lots got formed. Some of them were a long time ago. Other times, a developer went to your local planning board and got a subdivision approved, and those plans get recorded at the registry. But they're good to have. It shows, there's the frontage to my house. It's 125 feet. There's the width of the property. My lot goes back 200 feet, and it gives a visual. It may not have some do, but most don't have where the house is situated. That's a plot plan. That's something that maybe a building inspector might have. But most of the plans at the registry were when the land got subdivided into lots. But it's good to show. It has directions. It has compass locations, and it kind of helps people kind of visualize where what their lot looks like.
Let's talk about legislation that is existing, has been filed at Beacon Hill or on Beacon Hill?
We always have some piece of legislation. I know we have one piece of legislation. We for years we've put AEDs in the registry, and we pay to train the staff and had them maintained. And I know former Representative Denise Garlick, who was a nurse, took up the cause that hey, the AED should be in all public buildings, and wanted to use Norfolk County as a test, and that's been championed afterwards by Representative Vaughn and Senator Michael Rush. That's one type of legislation. Other legislation we have is like the assignment legislation that helps people. We think assignments should be recorded, so when mortgages get sold, that people can go online, look, and see who's servicing. But the bill you're probably talking about is 3971, and that really originated out of Plymouth County. I get a bad rap that I'm the one suing the Norfolk County Commissioners, which I am, and we've won. The Supreme Judicial Court said that the county commissioners shouldn't be interfering in the registry, and they did it unlawfully and violated an unambiguous statute. But the Plymouth Register of Deeds, and again, it was 2-1. One county commissioner at least was, prudent enough to side with the Register of Deeds. They didn't want to appoint. They blocked an appointment of Register John Buckley's first assistant, and the court ruled against them, saying the Register is the appointing authority, and he has the better arguments. You can't just block a funded and approved position. And again, it's interesting because we have a second case. I'm just coming from filing a brief where that's one of the issues, where the county commissioners in Norfolk County did not sign an appointment, a blue paper recognizing my appointment of a registry chief information officer, which is crazy in this day and age, not to have, the registry used to have a dedicated chief information officer. That's another story for another day. But it all ties into your bill. That bill came out of a Plymouth County state representative filed that bill because of all these problems. And my issue is, it's up to people to decide. Should county government be relooked at? Should county government be abolished? All I'm saying is some of the decisions that are being made, even here in Norfolk County, they're not being done transparently. There's been some terrible policy decisions, closing a disaster recovery office in Dedham and then moving it somewhere, and they didn't have an occupancy permit for 6 months. Just poor decision making. And don't go by my say-so. They've lost in court. This case that's being appealed is now the second case where, the judges have ruled that they're misappropriating money. So there's a lot of bad government going on, and it's up to the county commissioners to either change that. And what that bill says is, in the Plymouth Register, it came out of Plymouth County, is if you're not going to support the registry, or more than that, what's going on in Norfolk County is, they may have budget problems, and maybe it's an antiquated layer of government, but don't ruin the registry. The Norfolk Registry is recognized as the gold standard around Massachusetts as far as delivering services and as far as the quality of work that gets done there. If you don't want the Norfolk Registry around, this bill says we'll go to the state.
Right.
There's 13 registries that are state-run registries, and maybe there's a reason those other counties went out of business, and they went out of business because there was some bad decisions, there was some questionable, if not corrupt actions taking place, there was misappropriations of monies, which is part of what this lawsuit's about. That's why some of those counties got abolished, and if it continues, maybe that's what happens here. I don't know, but again, it's too bad because Norfolk County used to be well run, but it's lost its way the last few years. That's for sure.
We're going to end this program. We just have a couple minutes. We do want to end with a happy birthday to Frederick Law Olmsted. But that actually brings me, so it's a history piece, and that actually brings me to the most recent publication from the Norfolk County Registry of Deeds.
It's hot off the press, and again, we did this. History Comes Alive project, where we transcribed over 450,000 documents from 1793 to 1900, and you start looking through it, and all these stories came out. So, yes, Mr. Olmsted was the father of American, landscaping architecture, and did the things like the Emerald Necklace. And again, Mark, you were the Spielberg. You did a great piece on it. A lot of your pieces have become award-winning. But similar, we did a book about women. We did We Remember Our Veterans in 2023. But we have a book, We Remember America's 250th Anniversary, 1776 to 2026. This is now our fifth volume. And the book is dedicated, this book and the celebration of this country, the United States of America, is dedicated to all patriots who, during the American Revolutionary War 250 years ago, laid the foundation for the freedoms and liberties we enjoy today as Americans. So again, similar to the other books, we go into the towns and we find a deed. Here's Colonel John Holbrook, and we talk about, here out of Medfield, a patriot and farmer, Captain Chineri, who went to fight. Again, Ishmael Coffey was an African American, and also a patriot who was involved in the fight. So many interesting stories. There was a gentleman from Plainville who got injured during the Boston Massacre, was part of the Tea Party group. And so we have so many stories about local patriots. And when you think about it, Massachusetts and Norfolk County, was kind of the epicenter of the start of the Revolutionary War. So we hope to have an open house and distribute the books, but it's just, and it's timely because it came out before the celebrations, Patriots Day, so it's just coming out. You get the first copy, but again, it builds on the stories, like you mentioned, of Mr. Olmsted that are here in Norfolk County.
Bill, thank you so much for joining me, and we'll have you back in the next quarter.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
The Frederick Law Olmsted National Historic Site, located at 99 Warren Street in the Norfolk County community of Brookline, Massachusetts, is today administered by the National Park Service. This landmark property is named after Frederick Law Olmsted, who is considered the father of American landscape architecture. Frederick Law Olmsted was born in 1822 in Hartford, Connecticut. He graduated from Phillips Academy in 1838. During his pre-Civil War career in journalism, he wrote about nature and agriculture. After studying landscapes, he joined Calvert Vaux in the designing of Central Park. After which he went on to design large parks around the United States in the 1850s and 1860s, including Niagara Reservation at Niagara Falls, Prospect Park in Brooklyn, the Riverside Park in suburban Chicago, the park systems in Louisville, Buffalo, and Milwaukee. In 1883, Olmsted established what is considered the first full-time landscape architecture firm. Mr. Olmsted moved his family to Brookline, Massachusetts, where he established both his home and professional landscape architecture firm in an old farmhouse on the 2-acre property. Olmsted restored the property and renamed it Fairstead. Frederick Olmsted designed the campus of Stanford University and the University of Chicago, as well as the landscaping around the United States Capitol building in Washington, D.C. Olmsted also designed the 6-mile Boston Emerald Necklace, which consists of 1,100 acres of parkland linked by pathways in Boston and Brookline, Massachusetts. The Emerald Necklace gets its name from the way the planned chains of parkland appears to be hanging from the neck of the Boston Peninsula. Frederick Law Olmsted died in 1903, but his legacy lives on.